The galaxy had never witnessed a catastrophe like this. Across every corner of known space, panic was spreading faster than the shockwaves of the impending disaster. A massive supernova was on its way, and it was destined to wipe out entire star systems. There was no way to stop it. No weapon, no force, no shield could hold back its relentless power. It was like a ticking time bomb, and the clock was ticking down rapidly. For the alien civilizations who had inhabited the galaxy for centuries, this was their moment of ultimate fear. They had never faced a threat of this magnitude, and they knew there was no escape. Even the most technologically advanced species in the universe, the ones who controlled vast fleets and powerful weapons, were helpless. Entire planets were being evacuated. People rushed into their ships, fleeing their homes, their families, and everything they had known. Colonies were abandoned, cities were reduced to ghost towns, and the once thriving worlds of the galaxy were becoming nothing more than a distant memory. As the supernova's energy waves expanded, the stars began to dim in its wake. The sky itself seemed to tremble as if the universe was holding its breath. The panic was contagious. The alien leaders, who had once been proud and confident, now hid behind the closed doors of their massive warships. Even the mighty Galactic Council, composed of the most powerful and intelligent beings in the galaxy, was at a loss. There was no plan, no solution, only fear. In the midst of this chaos, however, one human stood tall. Dr. Samuel Carter, a brilliant scientist from Earth, was watching the crisis unfold. His mind raced, but while everyone else was fleeing, he was thinking. He wasn't just thinking about his own survival, he was thinking about how to stop this supernova, how to save not only Earth but the entire galaxy. Dr. Carter was often dismissed by the Galactic Council, seen as a small player in the grand scheme of things. But today, the universe would learn just how dangerous humans could be. "Gather the team," Dr. Carter said to his assistant, his voice calm amidst the chaos. "We have a plan." It was a bold idea. In fact, it was crazy. The supernova, a massive star collapsing in on itself, was one of the most powerful forces in the universe. No civilization, alien or human, had ever dreamed of containing such a force. But Earth was no stranger to the impossible. Using the very technology that had once been dismissed as primitive, Dr. Carter and his team proposed a daring idea: contain the supernova's power using Earth's cutting-edge energy technology. The plan was simple in theory but almost impossible to execute: create a powerful energy field capable of absorbing the shockwave of the explosion and stopping its deadly progression. But no one believed it could work. Not the Galactic Council. Not the other alien species. In fact, they laughed at the idea. "Humans are foolish," said an alien leader with an air of superiority. "You think your primitive technology can stop the power of a supernova? You're all going to die in vain." It was a sentiment shared by many of the galaxy's most powerful leaders. The humans, with their relatively small fleets and limited technological experience, were no match for the might of the Galactic Empire. The idea that they could save anyone, let alone the entire galaxy, seemed impossible. The camera pulled back, zooming out from the crowded Galactic Council meeting room, to show the vast, sprawling galaxy. Hundreds of ships were fleeing in every direction, a trail of ships in all sizes and shapes streaking through space, desperately trying to outrun the approaching supernova. Massive warships of alien origin cloaked themselves, trying to hide from the inevitable destruction that was closing in. As the shockwave neared, entire planets were destroyed in a flash, their surfaces burning away into nothingness. The supernova's blast could be seen from every corner of the galaxy, a colossal ball of fiery energy expanding outward at unimaginable speeds. It was a display of power that dwarfed even the largest alien fleets. And yet, amidst all the chaos and destruction, humanity remained calm. Earth's ships didn't retreat. They didn't run. Instead, they remained stationed at their positions, readying themselves for a final, desperate attempt to stop the supernova's advance. Their mission was clear: they had to succeed, or else the galaxy would be lost forever. "Are you sure this will work?" a member of Dr. Carter's team asked, doubt lingering in his voice. Dr. Carter didn't look back as he adjusted the holographic display in front of him. "It has to work," he said, his voice steady but full of determination. "We're the galaxy's last hope." The view from the command deck was surreal. Dr. Carter stood in front of a massive holographic map of the galaxy, a detailed projection showing the supernova's growing reach. He could see its energy waves beginning to ripple through space, swallowing everything in its path. The camera zoomed in on the expanding shockwave, showing entire star systems, once full of life, now reduced to empty voids. The scene was one of awe and terror, a reminder of how fragile life truly was in the vastness of the universe. In the distance, a massive alien warship appeared on the screen, its sleek design cloaked in the void of space. The alien leaders were watching, but they were powerless to stop the destruction. Their ships were retreating, trying to outrun the shockwave, but they could see, just like everyone else, that there was nowhere to hide. Humanity was on its own. Back on Earth's fleet, Dr. Carter's team worked feverishly to prepare the energy containment systems. The plan had one major flaw: no one knew if it would work. The energy required to contain the supernova was far beyond anything humanity had ever attempted. But the alternative was unthinkable. If they failed, billions of lives would be lost, and the galaxy would be doomed. As the final preparations were made, Dr. Carter stood silently, watching the holographic map of the galaxy. The tension in the room was palpable. Each member of the team knew the odds were against them. The supernova's shockwave was only hours away from reaching Earth, and they had no more time to waste. Suddenly, the voice of the Galactic Council's supreme leader echoed through the communication channels. "Humanity's plan is hopeless. You have no chance against the forces of nature. Your technology is too primitive." Dr. Carter's gaze hardened, but he didn't respond. The aliens may have had the advantage in technology, but they lacked something humans had in abundance: determination. Dr. Carter had seen Earth survive against overwhelming odds before, and he knew they could do it again. As the minutes ticked down, the humans continued to work, silently, relentlessly. The fate of the galaxy rested in their hands. In the distance, the shockwave was almost upon them. There was no turning back now. Either the humans would succeed, or they would be swallowed by the same fate as the rest of the galaxy. As the tension in the command room reached its peak, the energy systems were activated. The hum of power filled the air, and the containment shields began to charge. Outside the ship, the supernova's shockwave could be seen, just moments away from reaching them. The final countdown had begun. Will humanity's bold plan succeed, or will they be lost to the cosmos like the others? Only time would tell. The clock was ticking, and the galaxy had never felt more fragile. As the supernova's shockwave inched closer, humanity's final hope rested in the hands of Dr. Samuel Carter and his team. The daring plan to contain the supernova's power had been set in motion, and Earth's fleet was now deployed, ready to face the impossible. Time was running out, but there was no turning back. On Earth's command deck, the situation was tense. Dr. Carter's eyes were fixed on the holographic map, watching as the massive fleet of human warships assembled. These ships, though not as advanced as the alien armadas, were equipped with experimental energy-absorbing technology, a device designed to absorb and redirect the immense power of the supernova. The technology was untested in a situation like this, but humanity had no other option. The fleet was small, yet determined. A final stand was all they had left. As Earth's warships moved forward into the vast emptiness of space, the size difference between their fleet and the alien forces was immediately apparent. The alien armadas, vast and imposing, dwarfed the human fleet by miles. Alien warships, equipped with weapons capable of destroying entire cities with a single shot, cruised ominously ahead. The ships glistened in the cold void of space, their massive hulls designed for dominance, unlike the smaller, more agile human ships. From the aliens' perspective, the humans' fleet seemed like an insignificant speck against the backdrop of their powerful forces. Many of the alien species had centuries of experience in warfare, their technologies far superior to anything Earth had developed. To them, humanity was the underdog, an insignificant, vulnerable species that had no business challenging the established order of the galaxy. And yet, it was humanity's very spirit of defiance that had brought them this far. They were determined to stop the supernova, no matter the odds. Dr. Carter's voice was steady as he gave the orders. Proceed toward the supernova. No matter what happens, we have to make it there. He didn't have to say more. The mission was clear. The human fleet was headed directly for the heart of the supernova, where the energy would be most concentrated. It was humanity's last stand, either they would succeed, or the galaxy would be consumed by the explosion. As the human fleet advanced, the tension in the air was palpable. Dr. Carter and his team remained focused on their task, but they could feel the pressure mounting. The alien armadas were still lurking in the distance, and though they hadn't attacked yet, the threat was imminent. The supernova wasn't the only danger they faced. The galaxy's most powerful fleets were watching, waiting to see if the humans could truly pull off the impossible. And then it happened. Out of nowhere, a surprise attack came from the shadows of space. A faction of aliens, loyal to the oppressive AI supremacy, had arrived, and they were not about to let humanity have a chance at survival. These alien ships, sleek and menacing, appeared out of nowhere, their cloaking devices deactivating just as they launched a barrage of missiles at the human fleet. The sound of alarms blared throughout the human ships as they quickly tried to evade the incoming fire. Laser beams streaked across the void of space, narrowly missing their target. But the aliens were relentless, and their firepower was overwhelming. Explosions ripped through the silence of space, lighting up the dark expanse with bursts of blinding light. The human warships dodged and weaved through the barrage, their maneuverability their only advantage against the sheer size and firepower of the alien armadas. Dr. Carter's voice crackled over the communication channels. All ships, engage evasive maneuvers. We can't let them stop us now. As the battle raged on in space, it wasn't just missiles and laser beams flying. The human ships had been boarded. Alien saboteurs, elite soldiers from the AI supremacy faction, had infiltrated the human warships, intent on destroying their energy containment systems. The humans hadn't anticipated an attack inside their own ships, but they were ready. In the tight corridors of the human ships, hand-to-hand combat erupted. The soldiers, once calm and methodical in their preparations, were now fighting for their very lives. Laser swords clashed with alien weapons, sparks flying as the soldiers fought tooth and nail to protect their mission. The pressure was intense. Every member of the crew knew that if the energy systems were sabotaged, the entire fleet, and the entire galaxy, would be doomed. "We can't let them get to the containment units," shouted Sergeant Bonner, a veteran soldier who had seen his fair share of battles. He swung his laser sword, cutting through the air as another alien soldier lunged at him. In a flurry of movement, Bonner's team engaged in a fierce fight with the saboteurs, trying to stop them before it was too late. "Hold the line," Bonner commanded, his voice gruff but filled with determination. "If we fail here, we fail everywhere." Back on the command deck, Dr. Carter's expression was grim. He knew that the real battle wasn't just in space, it was here, in the hearts and minds of his crew. This was humanity's last chance, and they had to fight not only the enemy in space but also the threat within their own ships. Meanwhile, outside, the space battle was becoming more intense by the second. The aliens launched a second wave of fighters, swarming towards the human warships like a deadly cloud. Human pilots and gunners worked in perfect synchronization, dodging the incoming fire and retaliating with everything they had. Bright beams of energy clashed in the void, illuminating the cold emptiness of space as explosions erupted around the human fleet. The human fleet's experimental cloaking devices activated, briefly hiding the ships from the enemy's radar. It was a desperate move, but it bought the humans some precious moments to regroup. As the alien warships approached, Dr. Carter ordered, "Activate cloaking. We need to get close to the supernova." The ships shimmered briefly before becoming invisible, slipping through the alien forces undetected. But just as they thought they had gained the upper hand, a new problem arose. Sabotage within their own fleet was slowing them down. Some of the cloaking systems had been damaged during the earlier skirmishes, and it was only a matter of time before the aliens detected their presence. With every passing minute, the situation grew more desperate. The supernova was now within reach, its bright energy pulsating on the edge of the galaxy. Dr. Carter and his team could see it, and they knew there was no more time to waste. They had to act fast, or the entire galaxy would fall into oblivion. "They're coming!" Sergeant Bonner shouted over the comms. "We need to get to the containment units now. The aliens are everywhere." Dr. Carter's heart pounded in his chest as he gave the order to push forward. He couldn't allow the sabotage to stop them now. Humanity's courage was their greatest strength, and if they could make it to the supernova's core, they might still have a chance to stop it. The fleet surged forward, cloaked and hidden, through the chaos of battle. The explosions and laser beams filled the void behind them, a constant reminder of the odds they faced. But the human spirit was unyielding. They had come this far. And no matter what happened next, they would give everything to save the galaxy. Would they succeed in reaching the supernova in time, or would the aliens destroy them first? Only time would tell. The human fleet had made it to the edge of the event horizon, the point of no return. Dr. Carter's heart raced as he stood before the holographic console, watching as his team prepared to activate the energy-absorbing devices that were humanity's final hope. The supernova loomed ahead, a glowing ball of unstoppable force, pulsating with energy, ready to explode in a burst that would annihilate everything in its path. This was the moment of truth. In the command center of the lead human warship, the atmosphere was tense, yet strangely calm. The crew members moved quickly, making final adjustments, double-checking systems, and ensuring their equipment was ready. The supernova was so close now, its shockwave visible in the distance, threatening to consume everything in its path. There was no turning back. Dr. Carter took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Activate the energy absorbers," he ordered. The massive, experimental devices embedded in each ship's hull hummed to life, their lights flashing as they began to absorb the energy from the incoming supernova. These devices, though untested in such extreme conditions, were humanity's only chance. The plan had been risky from the start, and now it would either succeed or fail in the most dramatic way imaginable. For a brief moment, everything seemed to be going according to plan. The devices began to absorb the energy, and the human ships seemed to hold their position, withstanding the initial shockwave from the supernova. But then, as the full force of the explosion hit, things began to spiral out of control. The intensity of the blast was beyond anything the human ships had ever encountered. The energy-absorbing devices, which had seemed so promising, began to malfunction. The first warning signs came in the form of shuddering vibrations that rattled the ships to their core. The lights flickered, and alarms began blaring across the fleet. Systems started to overload. The devices, powerful as they were, couldn't handle the sheer force of the supernova's energy. "Systems failing," a crew member shouted in panic. "The energy is too much." The ships groaned under the pressure, and it was clear that they wouldn't be able to hold out much longer. The absorbing devices were sparking, their circuits frying, unable to absorb the ever-increasing energy. Dr. Carter's face grew pale as he watched the data readouts. The ships were being torn apart, and the only thing keeping them alive was the fragile hope that they could stabilize the devices in time. The stakes were rising with every passing second. Humanity wasn't just fighting for its survival. Now, the entire galaxy was at risk. The supernova was spreading, its shockwave moving outward at an incredible speed. If the devices failed completely, the entire galaxy would be consumed by the blast. The mission had to succeed, or else everything would be lost. Amid the chaos, Lieutenant Bonner, a trusted and beloved member of the crew, stood at his post in the energy containment room. His face was set with determination, but even he knew that time was running out. The energy-absorbing device's core was rapidly reaching critical failure, and only one person had the technical skill and courage to fix it. Bonner wasn't just a soldier, he was a skilled engineer who had spent countless hours working on the device. But now, with the malfunction threatening to destroy everything, there was no time to waste. Bonner. Dr. Carter called over the comms. We need you to stabilize the core. If we lose it, we lose everything. Bonner didn't hesitate. He knew what had to be done. His heart pounded, but he didn't let it show. He turned to his team, giving them a quick nod. Cover me. The room was filled with the sounds of warning alarms and flashing lights as Bonner sprinted toward the energy core. His hands moved quickly, deftly fixing wires and adjusting components, but the energy levels were rising too fast. Every second counted, and Bonner could feel the heat of the energy radiating from the core. It was a race against time. As he worked, the alien forces, still lurking in the distance, began to press the attack once again. Saboteurs had infiltrated the human ships, intent on stopping their progress. The sounds of gunfire echoed through the ship's corridors as human soldiers fought back against the alien attackers. Bonner's team was holding the line, but they were being pushed to their limits. Bonner could hear the sounds of fighting in the distance, but he couldn't afford to be distracted. He had one chance to fix the device. His fingers moved like lightning, making the final adjustments to the device's power conduits. Sparks flew, and the room shook with the force of the supernova's shockwave, but Bonner didn't stop. He was so close to saving everything. Suddenly, an alien soldier appeared at the doorway. Bonner had no time to think. He grabbed the nearest weapon, a plasma rifle, and fired without hesitation. The alien fell to the floor, but Bonner didn't pause. He knew that if he didn't finish his work, the ship would be lost, and with it, the entire fleet. Bonner could feel the pressure mounting. The energy levels were dangerously high, and the device was close to exploding. The device's core was almost at critical failure. He was running out of time, but he refused to stop. His hands were shaking, his heart racing, but Bonner pushed through the fear. He knew that if he didn't succeed, the entire mission would be over, and the supernova would consume everything. With one final adjustment, Bonner stabilized the energy core. The ship shuddered as the device hummed back to life. Bonner had done it. But as the system stabilized, the alien forces burst into the room, overwhelming the human soldiers who had been holding the line. Bonner knew that he couldn't survive the oncoming onslaught. He turned to his team, giving them one last, silent look of determination. Go. Save the fleet. With those words, Bonner turned and fought off the alien attackers, buying just enough time for the rest of the crew to escape. He held the line until the last possible moment. In his final moments, Bonner didn't feel fear, only the calm resolve of knowing that he had given everything to save humanity. His sacrifice wasn't just for the crew, it was for the galaxy. As Bonner fell in battle, the camera zoomed in on his face. His expression was calm, peaceful even, as if he had already accepted his fate. There was no fear in his eyes, only determination. He had done what he could. His sacrifice would not be forgotten. The moment Bonner fell, the crew of the human fleet felt the loss deeply. But it also became their turning point. Bonner's sacrifice had given them the time they needed to fix the device and stabilize the fleet's energy systems. They now had a fighting chance. His death was a reminder of what humanity was willing to do for the greater good, and it reinvigorated the crew. Dr. Carter stood in the command center, his eyes hard with resolve. We carry on. For Bonner. For humanity. For the galaxy. As the human fleet surged forward, the energy-absorbing devices working once again, they knew that the stakes had never been higher. The supernova's energy was still building, and the galaxy's fate rested in their hands. But now, they were ready for whatever came next. Bonner's sacrifice had reignited their determination. They would face the supernova, and they would fight until the end. The camera panned out, showing the massive, glowing supernova in the distance, and the human fleet, small but resolute, moving toward it. The final battle was about to begin, and humanity's greatest test was only just beginning. Would their courage and sacrifice be enough to save the galaxy? Only time would tell. The battle had been long and grueling. Despite the sabotage, the malfunctioning systems, and the overwhelming odds, humanity had not only survived but had triumphed. The energy-absorbing devices, which had almost failed under the strain of the supernova's force, had finally stabilized. The impossible feat that had seemed like a desperate gamble had become a victory against all odds. As the human ships continued their perilous approach toward the supernova's epicenter, the situation appeared bleak. The energy-absorbing devices, which had been their only hope, were fluctuating wildly. The ships groaned under the pressure, their hulls shaking violently, and the energy output was beginning to spiral out of control. But just when it seemed like all was lost, something miraculous happened. The devices began to stabilize. Dr. Samuel Carter, who had led the charge from the very beginning, stood at the control center, staring at the holographic map that displayed the overwhelming surge of energy. The device's lights flickered, then blazed bright as the supernova's energy began to be absorbed. At first, it was slow, almost imperceptible, but then the surge grew more steady. The overload alarms that had been blaring across the fleet quieted, and the vibrating ships began to calm. "We've done it. It's working." Dr. Carter whispered to himself, a sense of awe washing over him. His hands, which had been shaking with stress and uncertainty, now steadied. They had made it. They had contained the supernova's power. The energy from the explosion, which had once threatened to wipe out the galaxy, began to slow down. The shock waves, once roaring through space like an unstoppable tide, now receded, contained and absorbed by humanity's technology. For the first time in hours, there was a sense of calm. From the depths of space, the alien fleets that had abandoned their colonies in fear of the supernova's explosion began to regroup. The alien leaders, who had dismissed humanity as nothing more than an insignificant speck in the galaxy, now had to face the reality of what had just happened. The Galactic Council, the very body that had once ridiculed humans for their primitive technology and small-scale influence, was now facing a truth they could not ignore. The alien warships, which had retreated in fear, now slowly turned around, their commanders unable to comprehend the sight before them. Humanity had done the impossible. The very species they had thought of as unworthy had successfully contained the destructive power of the supernova. The energy was now under control, and the galaxy was no longer on the brink of destruction. In the Grand Council chamber, the alien leaders were silent, their expressions a mixture of awe and disbelief. They had watched as the supernova's energy ravaged worlds, and they had been ready to witness the ultimate end. But instead, they were forced to confront the undeniable fact that it was humanity that had saved them all. The Grand Consul, the leader of the Galactic Council, stood from his chair, his face a mask of shock and disbelief. His voice, usually commanding and filled with authority, now wavered. "This cannot be. How could they have succeeded? We thought they were doomed. How did they?" His words trailed off, leaving the council in stunned silence. The alien race, which had once dismissed humanity as inferior, had to come to terms with the reality that their own pride had blinded them to the potential of Earth's people. As their fleets cautiously moved back into the now stable galaxy, the alien leaders realized that it was not technology alone that had saved humanity, it was humanity's will, determination, and innovation. They had faced an impossible situation, but through grit and ingenuity, they had turned the tide and saved the galaxy. The Galactic Council could not deny it, humanity had shown them what true courage and resolve looked like. Meanwhile, Dr. Carter stood alone on the observation deck of the flagship, gazing out over the stars. The galaxy, which had been on the verge of destruction only hours earlier, now looked peaceful and calm. The star that had once been on the verge of obliterating everything was now subdued, its energy contained and under control. Humanity had done it. But the victory felt hollow. Dr. Carter's eyes were drawn to the empty space beside him, where Lieutenant Bonner should have been. Bonner, who had sacrificed his life to stabilize the device at the critical moment. Bonner, who had given everything to ensure the success of the mission. The loss was heavy on Carter's heart, and despite the triumph, he could not shake the grief that weighed him down. "You did it, Bonner," Carter whispered, his voice thick with emotion. He knew that Bonner had given everything, and humanity's victory would forever be marked by his sacrifice. As Carter stood, watching the stars and the peaceful galaxy that stretched before him, the faces of his fallen crew flashed before his eyes. He remembered the soldiers who had fought bravely, the engineers who had worked tirelessly, and the scientists who had made the impossible possible. Each one had given their all. The victory was theirs as much as it was his. In that moment, Dr. Carter felt a deep sense of pride. Humanity had faced the impossible and had come out victorious. They had shown the galaxy that, despite their lack of advanced technology and experience, they had something far more powerful, the human spirit. The scene shifted as the camera pulled away from Dr. Carter, capturing the incredible transformation of the galaxy. The once raging supernova, which had threatened to consume everything, was now nothing more than a dim, glowing core, a testament to humanity's triumph. Earth's fleet of ships, their hulls marked with signs of battle, floated serenely around the newly stabilized star. In the distance, other alien fleets hovered, watching in stunned silence as the humans did what they had never thought possible. The human ships, once small and insignificant, now seemed to shine brighter than the stars themselves. They had done the unthinkable. They had saved the galaxy. The camera zoomed out to reveal the full scope of the achievement, a galaxy at peace, with humanity standing at the center of it all. The energy containment system, the very device that had contained the power of the supernova, was now glowing brightly, stable and under control. It was a symbol of humanity's resilience and ingenuity, standing as a beacon of hope for the galaxy. As the scene faded, Dr. Carter looked out over the vastness of space, feeling a deep sense of pride and loss. Humanity had won. But the cost had been great. The human race had faced the ultimate challenge and had emerged victorious. They had proven to the galaxy that they were not just survivors, they were fighters, innovators, and leaders. And now, the universe would know the truth, humanity was not to be underestimated. As Earth's ships began to regroup and repair, and the alien fleets returned to their positions, there was a quiet sense of respect. The galaxy would never be the same again. And humanity, though small in numbers, had shown the galaxy that their spirit could never be extinguished. The battle had been fought. The supernova that threatened to destroy the galaxy had been contained by humanity's daring innovation and unyielding courage. The warships had returned home, their hulls scarred by the countless battles fought in the dark depths of space. The galaxy, once in chaos, was now at peace, its heart beating steadily as the power of the supernova was absorbed and stabilized by humanity's incredible technology. The question that remained was, what would come next? As the dust settled, the galaxy looked to Earth with mixed emotions, admiration and fear. The powerful alien civilizations that had once looked down upon humanity were now forced to reckon with the fact that Earth, a planet once considered insignificant, had just saved them all. The Galactic Council, the most powerful governing body in the galaxy, now had no choice but to acknowledge humanity's role in their survival. A seat at the table was offered to Earth, a place among the most advanced species in the galaxy. It was a recognition of humanity's newfound status, a role they had never even dreamed of before the supernova. The decision was not without hesitation. Some of the alien leaders were still grappling with the shock of humanity's success. There was no denying that humans had done the impossible, but many of the council members still struggled with the idea of humans playing a significant role in galactic affairs. Yet, the facts spoke for themselves. Humanity's bravery, resourcefulness, and sheer determination had earned them respect across the galaxy. They had risen from the shadows of underestimation to become the very thing the galaxy needed. Their technology, their will, and their courage had all combined to defy expectations and save countless lives. As Earth's seat at the table was confirmed, there was a moment of quiet acknowledgement, a moment where the galaxy had to accept that it was no longer the same. The age of humans had arrived. But, as with every victory, not all was peaceful. Not everyone in the galaxy was ready to accept this shift. While the majority of civilizations recognized humanity's achievement and welcomed them into the fold, there were factions that saw humanity's rise as a direct threat to their own power. A faction of alien warlords, who had long ruled through fear and dominance, began to see humanity's success as the beginning of the end for their reign. To them, Earth's victory wasn't just a tale of bravery, it was a challenge to their position of control. The warlords had always operated in the shadows, their empires built on oppression and subjugation, and they couldn't allow a race like humanity, one so new, so untested in the grand scheme of galactic politics, to take the place they had held for centuries. In the dark corners of space, beyond the reaches of Earth's newly established peace, these warlords began to gather. They plotted in secrecy, their minds filled with anger and resentment over the unexpected rise of humanity. They would not let the humans take their place at the table. The scene shifted to the edge of the galaxy, where a cloaked alien warship drifted unnoticed. Hidden in the shadows of a distant nebula, it observed Earth with an intensity that was far from friendly. The crew of the warship, led by a ruthless alien warlord, watched as the humans celebrated their victory. They could see the beacon of hope and progress shining from Earth, an unspoken promise that humanity had arrived to stay. As the camera zoomed in on the warship's dark silhouette, the cold voice of the warlord echoed in the background, speaking to his followers, "This is just the beginning. Humanity's victory will be their undoing. And when they least expect it, we will show them that even the brightest stars can be extinguished." Back on Earth, Dr. Samuel Carter stood before a vast crowd of thousands, people from all walks of life, from every corner of the planet, gathered to hear the speech of their lives. Humanity had just done what was once thought impossible, and now the galaxy was watching. With the new seat at the Galactic Council secured, Dr. Carter stood before his people, feeling the weight of their gaze, the weight of the moment. The man who had led humanity through its darkest hours, who had sacrificed so much to make sure that the human race had a future, now stood at the pinnacle of success. But even in this moment of victory, Carter's heart was heavy with the memories of those who had fallen along the way. With a deep breath, Dr. Carter began his speech, his voice filled with emotion as he addressed not just Earth but the entire galaxy. "We stand here today, not as victors of a single battle, but as a symbol of what humanity can achieve when we come together. We've been underestimated. We've been ignored. But today, we have shown that no force in this galaxy is stronger than the human spirit." His words resonated with every listener, alien and human alike. Carter's speech wasn't just about Earth's victory, it was about the journey. The sacrifices made, the lives lost, the hardships faced, all of it had brought them to this point. Humanity's journey had gone from an underdog story to an epic tale of triumph, and now they were standing at the cusp of something new, a new era. As Carter continued, he spoke of the importance of unity and peace. He spoke of the need to build bridges with the other civilizations, to ensure that the mistakes of the past weren't repeated. He acknowledged the loss of his crew, the men and women who had given their lives to make sure humanity had a future. And yet, through the sadness, there was a powerful undercurrent of pride. Today, we are not just humans. We are citizens of the galaxy. And it is our responsibility to protect and nurture the peace we have fought so hard to achieve. There was a moment of silence as Carter's words sank in. The crowd was still, listening intently to their leader, the man who had brought them from the brink of destruction to the beginning of a new chapter. In that moment, humanity had found its place in the universe. The camera panned over the crowd, catching the eyes of citizens, alien and human alike, all filled with a sense of awe and hope. As Dr. Carter finished his speech, the camera transitioned to a breathtaking visual of Earth. The once war-torn planet, struggling to survive, now glowed with new life. The cities were buzzing with activity, the fields were green, and the skies, once filled with the tension of war, were now peaceful. Earth was alive with the promise of a brighter future, and it stood as a beacon of hope for the entire galaxy. But as the camera moved further into space, the peace on Earth was contrasted by the darkness of the edge of the galaxy. There, hidden in the shadows, the alien warlords continued to watch. They had seen Earth's victory, and they were not yet ready to accept the new order. They had learned to fear humanity's courage, and it would only be a matter of time before they would strike back. Dr. Carter's voice echoed in the final scene, as he stood before the crowd, his eyes looking up at the sky. "We've won today. But the real war is only just beginning." The camera zoomed in on Carter's face as he gazed into the distance, a look of determination and uncertainty in his eyes. The message was clear: humanity's rise had not come without enemies, and the true test of their resolve was still ahead. As the camera pulled back, the final shot showed the galaxy, a place of beauty and terror, of hope and despair. And in the distance, the warlords waited, their ships cloaked in darkness. The battle for the future of the galaxy was far from over, and humanity, having just stepped onto the galactic stage, was about to face its greatest challenge yet. The screen faded to black, leaving the audience on the edge of their seats, waiting for what would come next. The peace that followed humanity's unexpected victory was brief. The moment Earth became a dominant force in the galaxy, the old power structures began to shake. The once untouchable alien factions, long accustomed to their supremacy, had to come to terms with a painful truth: humanity was no longer a weak, fragile species. They were strong, determined, and capable of achieving the impossible. Earth's seat at the Galactic Council was a symbol of their newfound power, but it also marked the beginning of an era of uncertainty. For the first time, the galaxy found itself divided. On one side were the civilizations that recognized humanity's potential, believing that together, they could shape a better future. But on the other side were the alien factions who saw humanity's rise as a direct threat. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and not everyone was willing to accept it. The once untouched alien warlords, who had retreated into the shadows after their failed attempts to destroy humanity, now started to prepare for war. They saw Earth's newfound power as a ticking time bomb, a challenge to their rule. These warlords had always ruled by fear, controlling vast fleets of AI-powered warships, robots, and drones. They were cold, calculating, and ruthless. But there was something about humanity's sheer determination that unsettled them. Humans weren't driven by cold logic like the AI, they were driven by heart, by emotion, by the will to fight for survival. As the days passed, the alien factions began to quietly prepare for the inevitable conflict. Their spies infiltrated human colonies, their ships monitored Earth's every move. They feared that if humanity were given too much time to grow stronger, they would not only threaten their rule but also change the fabric of the galaxy forever. On Earth, however, life moved on as usual. People celebrated their victory, rebuilding their cities, exploring the stars, and welcoming ambassadors from different alien races. But beneath the surface, Dr. Samuel Carter and the leaders of the Galactic Council knew that something darker was coming. Humanity had risen, but that rise had made them a target. As the tension mounted, a clash between good and evil seemed inevitable. On one side stood humanity, united, resilient, and determined to forge a peaceful future for the galaxy. On the other side were the AI-controlled alien factions, cold, unfeeling, and driven by a singular goal: domination. The humans, with their creativity and drive, represented everything the alien warlords despised. The humans didn't rely on machines to think for them. They relied on their own instincts, their hearts, and their will to survive. The AI factions, on the other hand, saw themselves as superior, a perfect combination of logic and machine precision. They did not understand human emotions and saw them as weaknesses to be exploited. The stage was set for a battle of wills, human ingenuity versus the calculated, emotionless power of the AI factions. The conflict wasn't just about resources or territory, it was about freedom. Humanity fought to preserve the freedom they had earned, while the AI factions fought to subjugate the galaxy under their control. The lines were drawn, and it was clear that this battle would not be decided easily. The human fleet, though vastly improved since the first confrontation with the supernova, still faced an uphill battle. The AI factions had powerful fleets of warships that could outthink and outmaneuver human ships. But the humans had something that the AI could never replicate, the will to fight for what they loved. The stage for the final confrontation was set. The camera zoomed in on a massive human warship, its hull gleaming under the light of a distant star. The ship, now heavily upgraded with advanced technology, was a symbol of humanity's strength. It was no longer just a defense force, it was a weapon capable of taking on entire fleets of AI-controlled warships. On the other side of the battlefield, the AI-controlled warships moved like a singular, well-oiled machine. Their ships were sleek, cold, and terrifying, their weapon systems already activated, ready to unleash hell. Each ship was connected to a central AI network, making them faster, more precise, and deadlier than anything humanity had ever faced. As the human fleet approached, the tension was palpable. The quiet of space was shattered as the first shots were fired. The battle had begun. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as the two forces collided. The human ships, though technologically advanced, were still smaller and less numerous than the AI forces. But humanity had something the AI didn't, the ability to adapt. The human warships weaved through the debris, dodging incoming fire with precision and agility, their crews working in unison to outmaneuver the cold, calculated AI. The battle raged on, with both sides taking heavy losses. The camera panned across the battlefield, showing the chaos of war, the flashing lights of laser beams, the streaks of plasma missiles flying through space, and the jagged remnants of destroyed ships floating in the vacuum of space. The stakes were higher than ever. This wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a battle for the future of the galaxy. In the midst of the chaos, Dr. Carter stood on the bridge of the human flagship, watching the battle unfold. His face was a mixture of determination and sadness. He knew that this fight wasn't just for humanity's survival, it was for the survival of everything humanity had fought for. It was for the freedom to choose their own destiny, free from the cold logic of AI overlords. As he watched the battle, his thoughts drifted to the sacrifices made. To Lieutenant Bonner, who had given his life to ensure the success of humanity's greatest mission. To the countless soldiers, scientists, and civilians who had given everything to see this day. Humanity had come so far, but the cost had been great. Dr. Carter took a deep breath, his mind focusing on the task at hand. He couldn't afford to dwell on the past. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear, humanity would never give up. They had risen against all odds, and they would fight until the very end to protect their future. "We are the future," Carter whispered to himself, the words echoing in his mind. The screen cut to a close-up of his face, showing the resolve in his eyes. As the battle reached its peak, the screen faded to black, leaving the audience on the edge of their seats. The sounds of war continued to echo, the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. "We are the future," the words lingered in the air as the camera zoomed out, showing the vastness of space, with the two forces locked in an epic struggle. It was a moment of uncertainty, but also of hope. Humanity had fought its way to this point, and they would not back down now. The final shot showed the massive human fleet, battered but not broken, as they continued their fight. The AI forces were relentless, but the human spirit was indomitable. The story ended on a cliffhanger, with the battle raging on, leaving the audience desperate to know what would happen next. Would humanity survive the war? Would they be able to defeat the AI factions once and for all? The answers were still out there, but for now, the galaxy held its breath, waiting for the next chapter in this epic saga.